Hello, it is a pleasure to be with everyone, or actually no one, as I stare at this camera now. But I really cherish the opportunity to share with you some reflections on the developing scope and growing aspirations of our active global citizenship program. Myth and Voice is a community storytelling program based at the Department of Classics, Royal Holloway, University of London. The project comprises of a gradually expanding repertoire of informal participatory workshops inspired by a range of story arcs from Greek mythology. The experiences are an open invitation for young people to step creatively into the shoes of distant fictive figures in engagement with pressing social and personal issues. They use the stories to model emotions, motives, desires, perspectives, and outcomes for the protagonists in their retellings, and to imagine alternative pasts, presents, and futures for strangers. They do this in communities and as a means of building communities. The initiative is aimed at schools, youth groups, and other appropriate voluntary settings. So far, it has worked widely in school, co-curricular and extracurricular environments. We are now looking at expanding our supporting allyship with other community organizations. The program is flexible and materials, activities and interactions are adapted to meet the particular needs and agendas. In the heart of this project have always been our own university student volunteer co-creators. The first group of student volunteers worked with the myth of Eurydice and Orpheus. The realization of how little we know about this figure, blessed or cursed with marrying a famous singer, gave focus to our co-productive work and led to the design of activities that would encourage adolescents only a few years younger than the student volunteers to experiment with a voice for Eurydice on behalf of those experiencing or being threatened by marginalization and silencing. Reflections on the first outings of this first Myth and Voice workshop can be found in a short article for Diversity and the Study of Antiquity in Higher Education, edited by Daniel Libatic and Fiona McHardy. Now, Eurydice is one of 7 workshops exploring how empathy and self-expression can be nurtured and celebrated. All have been developed with overlapping groups of committed university student volunteers. Eurydice remains a firm, popular choice for teachers who wish to give a myth and voice experience to their students. The story comes with a weight of authority that many students find hard to question. To start with, the participants' attention is captivated by the story's focus on Orpheus's extraordinary musical skills and unique dare to use them to ask for the return of his dead wife. It takes the participants time to notice, let alone befriend, silent Eurydice, who does not perform miracles. But she still weighs in the conscience, and sooner or later discussion turns to the topic of healthy or unhealthy relationships. The romanticism of Orpheus's grand gesture gives way to probing questions around compatibility or incompatibility between the two. Are they suitable for each other? Does he perhaps spend too much time away on tours with his band? Is it boring or tiring if she's on a tour with him? Has she been able to cultivate her own talents and follow her own dreams? The scenario of arranged marriage emerges at times, providing space for students to explore contemporary cultural differences on relationships as they imagine the processes of marriage in mythical Greece, a remote and traditional culture. Others speak about a marriage of necessity and create detailed portraits of a girl with heaps of intelligence and a serious shortage of money, and generally do not much like Orpheus or Eurydice's need to be with him. For this last group, the underworld becomes a place far away and full of possibilities. Might it be the place where she can be herself? Fascinating and innovative story arcs emerge once participants subscribe to the emancipatory power of the underworld as a metaphor and use it to imagine a young girl's dreams. On the opposite side of the girl with no voice, Arachne, the girl with a loud voice, generates an equally diverse reception. This workshop has shown me that myth and voice can give active citizenship and provide inspiration and a language to challenge authority. As with Eurydice, the process is gradual. Goddess Minerva, disguised as an old woman and being scorned by a young Arachne, naturally attracts attention and strong views. Many, often the younger ones, worry about Arachne's highly vocalized self-belief. On the flip side, there are those, mostly older teenagers and young adults, who find it hard to fathom Minerva's domineering posture and an authority so uninterested in keeping people on its side. The more politically alert develop a curiosity about ancient regimes of absolute power and have their first acquaintance with the ancient divine. This has at times led to ingenious comparisons with modern forms of dictatorships and certain overbearing political figures. After the first outings, we added prompts to consider whether the story attempts to coerce any particular receptions. With this, we hope that we also nudge the alertness of our participants towards the unwritten stories and tacit agendas that may circulate as fixed realities in their own environments. And so time and again, discussions reveal a general unease with how both female figures have been portrayed. Several retellings have been with inventive arcs that storyboard female competition between social influencers and Instagram celebrities, but also social and political activists with vivid reflections of the participants' own interests and values. Amidst them are those who would like Minerva and Arachne to be, in quotes, together against patriarchy, unquote, as someone put it. They would like the older woman to ease the younger one into what they see as a demanding male-dominated fashion industry rather than waste energy turning against each other. Once or twice, we were led to an extensive discussion of what, if anything, different generations owe to each other that yielded fascinating insights into the thoughts and experiences of young people keenly aware of increasingly generational discrepancies. Alongside all those, non-verbal responses have included tapestry drawing or tapestry making and the impromptu staging of a round of Britain Has Weaving Talent, a tactile interpretation based on fabrics as much as on ideas. And as our participants attempt to restore justice and care in their reimagined stories, they also experiment with models of positive language that could bolster their ability to take positive action in their own environments in the future and change the story there. In the early co-productions, the focus was on materials that invited youngsters to model opinions and find their voice. We were all acutely aware of the major advantage afforded by the remoteness and fictive universe of these tales. A safe, third space for self-expression through experimentation and role play, exploring old stories that resonate with contemporary concerns. Between them, the workshops so far available in the program support exploration of young teenage romance and relationships, female voices in today's societies, intergenerational conflict, citizenship and civil unrest, ecological responsibility, privilege in the environment, consumerism and environmental decline, urban forests and green streets, war, women and violence, migrant life, and communities fleeing conflict. Some workshops are suitable for 12-year-olds and above, while some are more appropriate for older teenagers and young adults. Formats and individual activities vary depending on the context of delivery, age, and size of the group. Modeling tools for a confident expression can be a transformative experience, especially for those children and young people with experiences of any kind of marginalization in their environment. Collective storytelling is social capital, and so Myth and Voice strives to support oracy through this story-led work that keeps the focus away from personal exposure. The retellings provide motivation for young people to articulate a voice which, without being confessional, can bring to the fore their tacit knowledge and legitimate their views in the eyes of others. And by questioning powerful figures from the distant world, young people get a taste of their ability to develop impactful language and a readiness to challenge the status quo. But as multiple groups of young people have now responded to the stimulations of Myth and Voice, in my role of a critical participant, I have become convinced that the most important contribution that Myth and Voice can offer to younger generations, including our own student volunteers, is a safe, unthreatening space for them to experience and to make community. This they do as they support and curate each other's voices. The act of co-creation, communication, and collaborative storytelling shifts focus from individualism to community. Though safeguarding resides with the institutional leaders, often teachers, with whom we agree the topics and the nature of the activities, our university students cherish their quote-unquote older sibling role and their empathetic approach to nurturing the self-development of their quote-unquote younger siblings. We now have our first paid student internships supported by an educational grant from the Council of UK Classics Departments, and now awarded to postgraduates working with Myth and Voice as part of their socially engaged research in the reception of classical myth. Making community has also been the motivation for some exciting cross-year intra-school conversations. Older students were offered mentoring to adapt and deliver a Myth and Voice workshop to bigger cohorts in their lower school, acting as critical friends and mentors as they try to create suitable opportunities and the appropriate atmosphere for the younger students. We plan now a deeper engagement to mentor the student leadership team in one school so they can create their own Myth and Voice workshop for younger students. It will be an opportunity for them to reflect on and model voices that can move and motivate others to make community. Making community in and around the classroom is a hard task. The demands of the exams-led hidden, in quotes, hidden curriculum in British schools build an environment that makes students reluctant to share and to develop their individual voices and in chronic need of teachers' validation. A primary assumption of the hidden curriculum is that there are right and wrong answers. Time and again, I have witnessed the initial discomfort of young participants when told that there is no right and wrong answer in a Myth and Voice workshop. Transgression of text and authority is required for many to follow their hands, and it is liberating and exciting to watch when it eventually happens. The normative classroom environment is heavily task-oriented, and so an experience without fixed outcomes, without right and wrong turns, can, and often does, leave the students unmoored and uncomfortable. In light of these norms, it is special when our participants invest their voices in a multi-authored patchwork. And these moments are increasingly frequent as the workshop materials switch to community making. We now regularly engage with round-robin writing or drawing and with patchwork making. In a recent collective sketching of Narcissus, I was delighted to notice 13-year-old children scribbling guidance for the next artist to carry on with their concept. I could see the impact of this risk-taking on their expectant smiles, entrusting their own thoughts to the care of others, hoping and wondering how far this thought is going to be carried by these others who were often only tenuously connected to them. In another workshop, with a small team of 14-year-olds drawn from across the whole year group, we placed trust at the center. They were divided in two groups. Each one debated and agreed notes for a modern retelling of Eurydice and Orpheus. But instead of creating this retelling, they were then asked to give their notes to the other group to produce the story. The amalgam of emotions evident in the process was a spectacle. Deep-seated reluctance to trust acquaintances, maybe even near strangers, with their hard-debated thoughts, and disappointment for missing the opportunity to chisel their own voice, was counterbalanced by a novel and exciting sense of responsibility to be faithful to a group of people with some of whom they had never had a single conversation previously. For such opportunities for genuine curiosity leave a deeper print in extracurricular spaces and physical, social and health education programs rather than in co-curricular time. I have found this freedom in happy engagements with after-hours, free-willing myth and storytelling cafes and with Fem Space, a girls' support space for 15 to 17-year-olds that recently invited me to their regular weekly meetings. My intention is to explore further such spaces to which individuals are drawn in the hope of finding community. I have made contact with local council, youth programs and library groups, with the Women and Girls Network in South London, and with West London Welcome Centre for Migrant and Refugee Communities, and look forward to exploring how Myth and Voice might support their needs. It seems to me as if these days, more than ever, labels or even simply a strong sense of identity can keep people firmly apart. Echo chambers flourish and suspicion and prejudice reigns supreme. I will not attempt to explain in a couple of lines an achingly complicated phenomenon, but I wonder what could happen if more of us could feel deep curiosity to seek out strangers, those we consider others and different to us. Curiosity can be a powerful way to break defensiveness and is a way to honest conversation. So what if we could find it in us to be genuinely and deeply curious about people's stories, setting aside our own preconceptions, even temporarily? Myth and Voice aspires to contribute towards the building of genuine curiosity and respect for the stories of others. It places these old and yet resonant tales of communal concerns, trouble and hope that belong to no one and to everyone in the trust of the young participants without gatekeepers. It then asks them to seek out with openness and nurture one another's visions of these stories of others. It hopes that faced with the next newcomer down the road, some of these participants might remember making community with ancient and modern strangers in Myth and Voice, and thus hear the curiosity to seek the stories of others calling again. Such active and social citizens seem to me to be a promise for a world a little less fragmented and a little more at peace with all parts of itself. Thank you.